Hey folks, this is Dr. Kat Schreier, Water Citizen, and I am here to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. This is the time of year that I always think back to when I was a kid growing up, and a little family tradition we used to have where my dad and I used to sneak out from the post-dinner cleanup, go walking down the stairs to the basement den where he had his stereo system set up, and he'd pull out his old copy of Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this little piece of Americana before. It all started 2 Thanksgivings ago, or 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, when my friend and I went down to visit Alice at the restaurant. Now, Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant, it's just the name of the song, and that's why I call this song Alice's Restaurant. Now, this was just a little bit of our family history here. And these stories, these pieces of our family history, there was an article not too long ago in the New York Times where they talk about the stories that bind us, and it was talking about how kids who grew up knowing their family stories were so much more capable of getting through times of adversity or meeting great challenges because they knew that their family had been there before. Now, you may not know this, but Arlo Guthrie, there actually is a connection between Arlo and water. You see, Arlo was the son of Woody Guthrie, the famous folk singer of the Depression years, in Okie, who'd come out of the Dust Bowl, who was hired by the Bonneville Power Authority and the Department of Interior as part of a film that they put out on the Columbia River, talking about the construction of the Grand Coulee Dam and the Bonneville Dam and the other dams in the Snake River, to irrigate the arid parts of the state that were only getting 8 inches of water a year, and turning that into agricultural land, to create the power, the hydropower plants that provided the electricity for all the aluminum and everything for all the planes and the ships that we later needed during World War II, and for the production of phosphorus, for fertilizer, for food, as well as the dams for the great floods that they had in the 1940s. And throughout this little 20-minute video, they've got peppered all these short songs that Woody Guthrie had written that really captured the story of what was going on with the Okies, and what was going on in the Grand Coulee River, and calling the Coulee Dam the biggest thing that man had ever done. And we in water, we do great things. We're not just what's in it for me kind of people. We're working together with folks within our communities, within our organizations, within our community, within our country, internationally, and all of that starts with good communications. It starts with stories, and I feel just so lucky to have completed my doctoral degree at Colorado State University, to have lived in Colorado, an area where at the state capitol, the walls of the state capitol are covered with what's called the water murals and the words of Thomas Hornsby Farrell's poem, "Here is a Land Written in Water." Okay? And we just had that sense of water as part of the culture and storytelling about water. And I would be able to hear from, everyone from the historian Patty Limerick, who is absolutely as hysterical as her name would suggest, to the state Supreme Court Justice Greg Hobbs, who would take every case that came before him and write a poem. So we had whole books of poetry about water-related issues. We had Russ George, the former Speaker of the House, and Tom Check, who used to be head of Really Water, who would give history lessons and give us the context of the issues that we were dealing with. And then, of course, there was Chip Sperry, the head of Denver Water. His famous jokes file. Although he wasn't all fun and games, he was really an integral part, working with the heads of several of the other large water organizations about the time that I moved back to DC in 2007. And they were saying, look, things are changing. We've got climate change occurring that is impacting our water supplies, the timing of our water supply, the availability, all the plans of how our water systems were set up, all that was shifting. The water quality was shifting with temperature changes and chemical changes occurring in the water. All of that was shifting on top of aging infrastructure, on top of regulations from the EPA and these unfunded mandates and really going to Washington with chips, with Pat Mulroy from Las Vegas, with folks from New York, from Florida, from all over the Western United States, going down there and sharing their stories with Congress. They need help. And now here we are over 10 years later, and we've got money from WRDA, from the Farm Bill, from we've got funding mechanisms through WIFIA. A lot of that work succeeded because people started out with great stories years ago. And the thing is, we talk about how important it is to do communications in water, and there's budgets now that people are hiring communications consultants, and they're hiring communications staff and people who have degrees in communications, but they don't have that history. They don't know the science, the engineering in water, and there's also a consequence of all the awareness raising that has been done over the years on the importance of water. Is that yes, we've got the public activated, and they're saying yes, water is important. Yes, water is life. Yes, I care about water because my kids are going to need water in the next generation, and all that kind of stuff. And they're creating new as waterpreneurs, creating new nonprofits that who made all this money and wanted to find himself, and he goes to Africa and he sees that they need water, and he creates a new nonprofit from scratch, this Charity Water, and he's using the same techniques that I've been learning about in the online space, with online courses and online education and online launches, and suddenly, poof, he's got this huge nonprofit. And we've got other nonprofits in the space, and folks like Alliance for Water Efficiency for years has been doing amazing work. And they're trying to compete, for the dollars and for grant money and things like that. And we need to have a way to teach the new forms of communications, not just to the communications staff. I mean, it's fine if you want to have your communications staff working with WaterCitizen and we're happy to help, but really to have the people themselves, the engineers, the scientists, the economists, the legal analysts, the policy analysts, the folks who have been in the trenches, on the ground, working on water, to teach you the skills in strategic storytelling. And another part of my family history is recognizing that the name Schreier means it comes from the German. It means the town crier. Hear ye, hear ye. Let me tell you what's going on in water. Diane Curry Sam, my partner on this strategic storytelling course, Be a Better Story is the name of her company, and she's also descended from a great storytelling family. In fact, she's descended from Scottish bards, as she talks about in the webinar that we've been sending out to folks. The bard in ancient Scottish culture was second in command only to the head of the clan, because this was the person who could tell those inspiring stories that could raise up the villages, the clan, and get people to go fight in battles. I mean, that was such an important role, and it still is. No matter whether we're battling hurricanes or budget fights or whatever it is that we're trying to do in water, first we need to start with telling great stories. And the good news is that this is something you can learn. Great stories are engineered. There's skills, there's crafts that we can learn, and we can teach it to you. Diane has already created this amazing course that she's already taught so many people and organizations how to capture the right stories, how to craft that story, how to deliver that story, how to create their storytelling plan for the coming year. And she's offered to work with us on making this available for half of the usual price. On top of that, I'm going to be there with you in the program, and we're going to be really helping based on my decades of experience doing water planning and permitting and policy and all the rest of where the right story can make the biggest difference. Who do you need to tell that story to? What are their priorities? And how can we work that into the story? This is going to be a fantastic experience. And I get that so many of you have not ever taken an online course before, or if you have, it's those boring pre-recorded things on the government websites and the stupid the PowerPoints or WebEx or whatever, the kind of thing you have playing in the background while you're sitting there doing your expense reports, right? That's not what this is like at all. This is an experience where you're on the screen with the coach, with me, with your fellow classmates. You're able to yes, get some great content, but also have a lot of Q&A, a lot of interaction. You're able to see other people getting their questions answered. When you see someone else in that hot seat position where they're there, or love seat, however you want to call it, that where they're getting their questions answered, that gets your own questions answered as well. And in addition, we're having this fantastic LinkedIn group where people are going to be posting what they're working on and getting feedback, not only from me and Diane, but from your other folks as well. My vision for this is that we create a whole new culture of great storytellers again in the water industry. It's so easy when everything is in apps and everything for people to lose that skill, or we're put together these technical reports. One of the greatest gifts I ever had when I worked for a large consulting firm is one of my bosses used to tell me that, we get all the data together for the reports, but the numbers are just a representation of a story. We need to find and tell those stories. And this is just so critical within water, whether it's building our own teams, whether it's communicating with a client or a regulatory agency or a funding board or our own boards, whether it's testifying in Congress at Water Week next spring, out that approach of how to tell a great story and how to work the stories, the water professionals, the water leaders, every step of the way. So we are moving out the start date for this course. We're going to start on Wednesday for how you strategically develop and deliver the stories that are really going to make the difference for you, for your organization itself. We're going to be walking through that. And yes, if you want to, go hire Diane separately for 5 figures, however much that's going to cost, I'll